Hit the like and subscribe button right now or else this will be your wife. Ask/Reddit by Reddit Habbits. Lawyers of Reddit, what is a detail that your client failed to bring up to you that completely lost you the case? Opposing counsel, isn't it true you hit victim in the face with a brick? Client, no. Marcus hit him with the brick. I hit him in the back with a piece of wood. He'd sent a photo of his wife's beaten face to his wife with a message saying something along the lines of this, do you want this to happen again? He came across very well in court up to that point, but his mask slipped when that came out. Yay, sounds like someone I know. He can keep the mask on for a while, but it starts to slip when his perceived world isn't reality. A buddy of mine cases a public defender. A gal was busted on drug charges and told him she didn't have any drugs on her when they arrested her. He thought, okay, we'll use that. Turns out, she didn't have any drugs on her when they arrested her because she just sold them to an undercover cop. Custody case. Client failed to tell me he was previously convicted of felony child abuse for breaking 16 bones in an infant's body. Sometimes I wish we could stone people. Little late to the party, but here goes. And obligatory, not my client. Company I worked for at the time was doing due diligence before acquiring a small tech startup. The COO of the tech startup was a well-liked guy in the company, friendly and outgoing. Though we had heard rumblings that the COO was rather hands-on with the work and with female employees. Apparently there was a walkaway package proposed to the COO that would let him keep a sizable portion of his post-acquisition bonus because a young woman who worked in their sales department had filed our complaints against the COO and obtained counsel. I sat in on the meeting with the COO and the company's retained lawyers while they grilled him about his contacts with the young woman. The COO denied ever having contact with her within the company without multiple other people present. Those people said his behavior toward her in the meetings didn't raise any flags. The COO emphatically denied having any contact with her outside of work. The lawyers asked the question a half dozen different ways and each time the COO denied any out of work contact. Later we meet with the woman and her lawyer with the COO not present. Her lawyer gives us a rather graphic card that came with a bouquet of flowers addressed to her from the COO. The guy had an account with a florist linked to his credit card. When the company retained lawyers confronted him, he said, but I never had contact with her. It's not like I delivered the flowers myself. COO got terminated for cause so no walkaway package. At her request the woman was given PTO until after the acquisition, then moved to another one of the companies under our umbrella. Lawyer in the UK. I acted for a member of a famous paedophile hunting group. My client was charged with various offences relating to his vigilantism, most seriously, causing grievous bodily harm with intent. He wanted me to fight the case on a public interest defense point that is not available to him in statute or at common law contrary to my advice. I followed his instructions as I'm bound to do. If the state won't punish pedophiles properly, then it's left to men like my client to take the law into their own hands. A horseshit argument for a whole host of reasons. His laptop was seized by police and submitted for forensic examination. He had a staggeringly huge database of child pornography on it. He himself was a massive pedo. Edit, spelling. Edit 2, spelling again. I beat up pedophiles in my spare time. No one will suspect a thing. Friend of mine is a defense attorney. He was representing a guy with a lengthy record for assault. Basically this guy took an account unit and threw it at his girlfriend. My buddy tells me he was able to get a plea deal for 1 year probation, no jail time. The judge is all ready to accept the deal when he asks the defendant if he had anything he would like to say. The defendant responds, yeah, I don't know why they charging me with assault, I never touched her. I just threw an account at her. This is bullshit. Judge rescinded plea deal because of defendant's attitude/lack of remorse, went to trial and got a year in jail. The idea of having an account unit thrown at me is honestly terrifying. That he filmed his offenses for his YouTube channel. The cops didn't even know. A witness brought it up on day 3 of a trial. It was a nice quick change of plea that afternoon. So you're saying it's just a prank, bro? Isn't a valid legal defense? Not since Prankster v. Bro in 1986. Case as a paralegal. Negligence case. Client argued that a lack of street lights and a cyclist he couldn't see was responsible for him hitting a wire pole. Upon discovery, the first respondent's report indicated that they found the driver in the driver's seat, pants down, with porn playing on the phone. Wasn't difficult to figure out who was negligent at that point. Your Honor, if the cable repairman had simply fixed the cable in accordance with professional standard practices, my client would have had no other recourse but to keep his ostrich in the corral on the evening in question. Not my client, but the son of the opposing party, and presumably the party himself, lied about being blind to make himself seem more sympathetic as a witness. We didn't know either until he took the witness box. Their counsel asked him to take the oath, and he picked the card up and read it. That was the cherry on top of a series of ridiculous events. The judge dismissed the whole thing in our client's favor shortly after. I was a trainee at the time, but my boss, who was in her late 60s then, said it was the most ridiculous case she'd ever handled. And he picked the card up and read it. I was expecting he easily walked up or sat down, not that he was stupid enough to actually read something out. I love reading through this thread at all the stories and thinking which of them, if they wrote them into a television show, would be laughed off the air as too ridiculously made up. This one is a prime example, lol. I'm a public defender in an area with lots of meth use. Meth makes most people talk a lot. So I can't tell you how many clients forget to mention that they got to the jail still high and called their mom/girlfriend/buddy on the recorded jail phone and not only confessed to the crime but also brainstormed whatever alibi or version of events I'm relying on to defend them. Edit. I'm seeing this question a lot, so I'll add some info here. This is not legal advice, just explaining things a bit more. Calls to a lawyer are privileged and generally go through dedicated lines that aren't recorded, depending on the facility. Calls to family, friends, etc. through the normal phones are not privileged, are generally recorded, and can be used in court. There are usually printed signs near the phones and a recorded warning before each call that this is the case. I was in court once for a school journalism project, and there was a woman in court who had been arrested for weed and crack possession when she came to bail out her boyfriend from a separate arrest. Apparently he called her from jail and told her to come bail her out and to bring some weed and crack. The guard overheard him, and it was recorded on the jail phone, so they arrested her when she showed up. I want to think these people are just addled by drugs, but somehow that feels like wishful thinking. I'm actually a lawyer, but I was only watching this trial, not participating. So the case was that woman A had hit woman B in the head with a heavy beer pint at a bar, and woman B got pretty serious injuries. The defense claimed that woman A had not hit anyone with the pint, but instead had just thrown the pint into a random direction, and it happened to hit B in the head. Thus it was an accident, and not a battery. Well, the prosecution had a CCTV tape from the bar, and it was shown at the trial. And the tape clearly showed in HD as A walked behind B and smashed the pint to her head so hard that the pint shattered on impact. I looked at the defense lawyer and his jaw literally almost hit the table. The prosecutor also noticed this and asked something along thrown A. And the defense lawyer said that due to technical difficulties he couldn't get the CCTV tape open on his computer when he was reviewing the evidence. Woman A was found guilty. So yeah, I was completely dumbfounded. I can't get the file to play. What is it? Video of the incident. Oh, it'll show you didn't do it, right? Yeah. Great. Next file please. Ma'am, this lawyer gig is as. This one ended my marriage. Well, it was the start of the end of marriage. My husband lost his job in the title/mortgage business. Applied for unemployment, got denied. I decide to help him with his appeal hearing. I asked him multiple times before the hearing, is there anything you did that caused them fire you? He says no, absolutely not, they fired him out of nowhere. Hearing day comes. He testifies under oath that he did nothing wrong, was a good employee, no issues. Upon cross-examination, the other attorney pulls out documents from one of his real estate closings, documents he forged and backdated. Had to admit he perjured himself. Needless to say he didn't get unemployment and he didn't sleep at home that night. Damn, that's rough. It's one thing to lie to a stranger, but to your spouse when they are supporting you? A friend of mine was married to some kind of technician. He worked, among other things, installing and repairing elevators. One day one of the customers sues him for destroying an elevator, and the husband denies having anything to do. My friend is enraged, and, together with the husband's lawyer, goes over all the evidence and the documents to prepare a rock-solid defense. And suddenly, my friend realizes that a lot of things don't add up. She asks her husband, please, be honest with me, did you do it? Several times, which always causes the husband to explode at her and accuse her of being a bad wife. And then, a couple days before the beginning of the trial, he comes to her hanging his head low and admits that it was him. The customer ended the maintenance contract, and in retaliation this guy showed up with a hammer outside business hours and trashed the elevator. My friend was livid. If they didn't have children she would have divorced him. I'm still a law student and this happened during my first internship at a court. A girl among other people was charged with drug possession, but because she had thrown away the drugs and the police couldn't prove that she bought or owned the drugs, BC it could have been one of the other people as well who still had drugs on them. The judge ruled in dubio pro reo. He then asked if she wants to add something, and this girl asked if she can get her drugs back. The defense attorney looked like he was about to get a heart attack. Edit. For those wondering, I know what in dubio pro reo means, but I wasn't sure if they use the term in other countries, and tried to explain it if not. This happened in Germany. I really don't want to believe anyone is that stupid. I really don't want to believe anyone is that stupid. Retired cop, I've worked those calls. They do happen, and it's not a one-off thing. When someone is extremely angry, knows exactly who ripped them off, but are real dodgy about what they sold the person / tried to buy, it's real clear. Others just flat out tell you, man, I know I shouldn't have been buying crack, but he ripped me off. Employment law matter. He claimed to have been unfairly dismissed over bogus performance management. The real reason, he organized via Craigslist to have someone collect a box of his cum from a children's playground. There were explicit messages from him asking what they did with it and whether they rubbed it all over themselves. The employer provided us the messages. Edit. He was doing this on company time. Jesus, if you're going to be a creep, don't do it on company time / equipment. WTF is wrong with people? What is wrong with people? Broadly gestures at cum box. Edit. Thanks for the gold kind strawards that I have to smear the gold all over my body while telling you about it? No. Client in family law matter lied to me about using meth. Then used meth with the child in the room and the ex got footage of it on the nanny cam and then made excuses about why they couldn't do a drug test, then blamed me when they lost custody, despite the fact that they didn't show up to appointments or return my calls, so I couldn't prepare any court material. I dumped the client after that and left family law. What kind of law do you do now? I do civil law with a focus on human rights now. When I did family law it practically sucked my soul from me. Safe to say I'm a much happier person now that I'm not dealing with people about harming their children and using them as pawns. Edit for clarification. Unfair dismissal case. The client claimed to have been dismissed without reason or following procedure. After we had started the case, it comes out that not only was he given 3 written warnings, but he was also called in for a disciplinary hearing before his dismissal. Don't lie to your lawyer. Similar to a doctor, I feel like not telling your lawyer everything can just hurt you. It was a typical appointment / interview with the immigration committee in order to grant my client a residence permit. He was marrying a woman in my country with my country's nationality, and this is a legitimate reason to be granted a residence permit. At least that's what I thought. The committee is bored to death and we all want to be over with it, so they asked him all typical and boring questions like how did they meet, where they live, etc. They ask these things to identify white / false marriages. At some point they ask him if he was married before, and he says yes, back in my home country, and I'm still married actually, never got a divorce. WTF. I was stunned. Double marriage is forbidden in my country, and he never bothered to mention this detail to me, neither to the other lawyer when we asked him. He later told me he said the truth. because he was afraid to lie in front of a committee. An honest and stupid man. I got all my money though, yet we had to find another way to gain a residence permit. I felt a too real shudder of recognition reading your story. So many times I've asked a client the exact same question like 5 different ways, just to make sure their answer remains consistent. Just to have them answer in the exact opposite way before the judge or decision maker during the hearing. Like, fuck, why even retain me if you're not even going to stick to the plan you're paying me money for? One of the unsolved mysteries of life, eternally. Not a lawyer yet, but I clerked for a DA's office throughout law school. Obviously we don't have clients, but I'll never forget this kidnapping case I worked on. It involved 2 Asian male defendants who were both the same age and looked relatively similar. Witness is on the stand and is asked to identify where the defendant who pushed a newsie into his face is seated. It's clear the witness is having trouble differentiating the defendants. In a true moment of brilliance, one defendant raises his fucking hand and basically points to himself like, right here bud. Hands down the dumbest shit I'd ever seen. I thought his defense attorney was going to have a brain aneurysm. Was the defendant's name Jason Mendoza by any chance? My doctor said my brain was smooth as an egg. Going to seriously miss TGP. I hope Michael Schur keeps making these wholesome, silly TV shows. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to keep up with our daily videos.